It's not every day that we have someone who is only the second person to ever do that. And I remember a couple weeks ago when we got the text from Andrew, and you had said, Scott, I was thinking Scott, and then you beat me to it. So I was like, okay, well, there it is. And so Scott Janney, three-time guest.
Three-time guest.
Yeah. What is it about Magazine Jukebox or Scott or what you're seeing him do that is unique? Because I've known him for almost a decade now. Like, he used to roll through Hatch, the Hatch coffees is when I met him in like 2014, 2015. Yeah. And like, he was just selling insurance through Allstate at the time. And that was a really interesting world for me to learn about him in that, because you really get the person on, like you get a client and then they never leave unless your rates go completely crazy because you, the consumer, screw up. Like the guy I've been with because I just randomly Googled Allstate because that's who I'm with, I think. And he's been my guy since 2007. Haven't done anything. 16 years. So Scott told me a lot about that, which was interesting. But like, when you hear about what he's doing with Magazine Jukebox and all that, what is it that you enjoy?
Yeah, well, I think above all else, Scott's just, when you talk to him, he just has that the confidence and aura to him that he's an executor. What he says he's going to do, he does. And I mean, we've talked about it on the show before. Some people talk a lot, and that's what they do, is just talk. But I think that every case, Scott has always been able to execute on the things that he said he was going to execute on, and that within itself sets people apart. So I respect that. And then the fact that him being a three-time guest, that speaks to that. So I think that you and I and Andrew, one of the things we have to do is we keep an eye out on what's going on in our region in terms of what businesses are making things happen. And the businesses that are making things happen are the ones that are generally on the show. So that speaks to what he's been able to do and as to why he's a three-time guest.
And now, Scott, is it Jenny, Januzzi? Like, have I ever asked this? Like, you go to the Norfolk Admirals hockey game. It's the Jenny King power play. Are you the Jenny King? Like, I know.
I guess more like the real question is, how many times do I got to be on your show for you to get this right?
Yeah, Scott, you're in rare company. You're only the third time guest that we've had.
Yeah.
Chris Hill's only on twice.
Yeah, I think that the only other three-time guest we had was Erica.
Oh, three-time. You're right.
So
right.
Scott has been on episode 60. 98 and now episode 160. So it's pretty well almost 50. So in terms of episode, we're off by 2 in the middle segment, but you got a lot going on, which is why you're back for a third time. So generally, if you're successful, it means that you're doing something right. So we got to catch up on everything that's happening.
That, or you're just burning cash. And to answer your question, Zach,
yes,
it's Janney or Janae. So not to confuse you here, but all my life growing up, I was Janae, and it's kind of a sad story. But I mean, it is a sad story. My father was diagnosed with cancer. He was dying, so we went back home to Iowa, where I never spent any time there. So I didn't, I never really had any, ties there whatsoever. And so, anyways, I was going back there, and a couple of his old high school friends were coming around. They all called him Janney. And I remember asking him, I was like, why did they call you Janney, but we go by Janae? And he goes, well, when I left off to the Navy, I did not like Janney, so I changed it to Janae. And I was like, oh, so 28 years of my life, you chose not to share that story with me. So here we go. So I had no idea that it was actually Janney or Janae. I go by either.
Someone's got to check, then you'll answer to either.
Yeah, I do that often. But now the checks don't come in my name anymore. So now they all come into Magazine Jukebox. So they don't come to me.
Do you actually still get checks, or is everything digital?
I would have seen it. Well, look at that.
Literally, I showed it. But yeah, no,
Who
one
was
of our
that from?
clients. Sharp. It's they're a medical facility or a doctor's office out in California. Yep, out in San Diego. They're one of our new clients.
So for those that don't know, Magazine Jukebox, that's what we're talking about. What's the 15 second pitch to bring everybody up to speed?
Yeah, so we use a line now where I say we are the digital distributor for commercial spaces when it comes to magazines. So we actually offer digital magazines to our commercial partners, and that way their patrons, so the clients of our clients, get to enjoy a digital magazine while they're waiting. So just imagine going to a doctor's office or going to a car dealership or going to a spa, resort, a hotel, and a coffee shop, and you're there maybe you're there by yourself, or maybe you're there with kids and the kids are playing and you just want something to, take away a little bit of time. You scan our code and you get to enjoy a digital magazine at no cost to the client. So, I mean, the commercial partners pay for the service. We use geofencing and time stamping technology. So we make sure that the magazines stay in their locations and they don't walk away.
I remember, I can't recall if we actually talked about this on another show, but I remember you had sent me the video that you guys got recorded, created, I think by Astoria, maybe a year or 2 years ago.
Yep.
It's a very well produced video. I like it. I think it tells the story correctly. I'm interested in it. Has that been a good investment for you? Something like that, getting a well articulated video like that. How did you use it? What are some wins and losses with that? Because I think a lot of people want to get a highly produced video, and then oftentimes it doesn't absolutely do even close to what they wanted it to do. And I'm just interested if it where it stood on that, what you learned from it, was it worth it, the ins and outs of your kind of commercial, if you will.
Yeah, so Astoria, so this was really early on, very early on. In fact, we were not live at all. It's a great commercial. We give 100% credit to Astoria and our buddies over there. Jared Beasley is he's the creative director over there, and he really put it together. And it's probably one of the best investments we made. And I'm just going to I'll share the price because this is a few years back, so no one can hold them to this price. But we spent about $14,000 to produce that video or that commercial. And, what's stressful about that is, we were taking investor money in. We didn't have a whole lot of money. So it was like, where is the best place for us to invest our money? And so what we found is putting into a commercial that would speak to who we are, what we're doing, how it works. We wanted to make sure that the commercial really reached a multitude of people. We wanted it to make sense for the commercial partner. We wanted it to make sense for the publisher. We want to make sense for the end user, the client, or the consumer using it. So it was really important that we hit all those marks. And what I learned quickly is that I really had to allow Jared to be Jared, so to speak, and draw it up, write it up, be the creative behind it, and put everything together. He came to me with a couple of questions. He asked some certain questions, and then he was able to run with it. And what I found is that really works best because I'm not a producer. I'm not someone who understands how commercials work and what should or should not be on there. So we really, we just went with it, went with what he did, and they created, beautiful piece of work. And what's really cool too is that they didn't just like give us the video, but then they gave us like outtakes, and they gave us 30-second, 45-second, 15-second snippets. So we were able to dice that up and put it into social media as well. We continue to use it to this day. I mean, we're talking 2 years later, we're still using dices of that to whether we're sending it to a potential commercial partner or we're sending it, putting it out on social media. It's really important to continue using it. They did a great job. Highly recommended.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, it's then it becomes a numbers game in terms of how you return that investment. So,
yeah,
was that tough for you to take a back seat and let the creative go to work and do what they do best?
No, because you would think it would be as a CEO or as a leader or co-founder or whatever you want to title me as, but you would think that would be the case, but it's really not. Like, one of the things that I pride myself on is that I am not the smartest person in the room. I never will be. I don't care to be. I like to surround myself with really smart people. And so when I go to a company like that, I'm expecting them to be the smartest person at the table when it comes to commercials or producing a video. If they came to me and they asked me questions on how to be a leader, then sure, I can lead that up. But I'm, even with our technology, I couldn't even tell you the first thing on how to code something. But I have people that can do that. And so that wasn't hard to let go of that. Now, what was hard and continues to be difficult is spending money. When you're using investor money, you want to be really careful, and every dime matters. Like, you really got to treat it like your own. And someone like myself who has been, successful kind of early on and throughout my past, I have this value for the money that they're investing. An investor who, let's say is a very successful insurance agent, and he's an accredited investor. That's how successful he's been. And he's able to invest $50,000 of his savings. The question you have to ask is, like, if they're willing to give you $50,000, then my responsibility is to really coddle it and take care of it. It's not to just go out and waste it.
Yeah, it's a big balance, right? In terms of determining how much gasoline, so to speak, to pour on the fire, and not pouring too much that the things explode, right, and go the wrong way. So it's a tough decision.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Well, just to piggyback off of that, like, still dealing with some of the investors over a decade that I've dealt with Hatch over the years. And I remember in one of our rounds where we invested in some companies, it did not go well and lost the overwhelming majority of the money in those from those people. And like, it was very difficult for me. I think it was 2015, 2016 timeframe. I mean, I remember I was able to write them a small portion of what they gave me back, like 20% back. So they took an 80% loss, probably something like that. And I remember, like, I feel like I cried that day writing that check. I wrote them all a letter being like, I wish it could be more. And shockingly, and maybe I'm speaking out of place here, but I feel like they actually took it a lot better than I did. Like, they're like, oh, well, we know we're going to lose this money, so who cares? But like, I didn't go into it looking to lose their money. I went into it trying to be a huge multiplier. And so I don't think every entrepreneur has that same mindset that you do, Scott. And I admire that, because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I got money, now I can do whatever the hell I want with it. And I think that's unique in many cases. So kudos to that.
Well, well, thank you for that. And I'm going to mark this in the calendar book when you said you admire something that I've done.
It'll be the only time.
I got to write this down, but
we can edit this out.
Yeah, I figured you probably will. So like, man, why did I say that? So you mentioned just line. What time are we at? We're at 18 minutes, 32 seconds. Line that up.
The thing to YouTube will say, like, Zack and Meyer Scott doesn't know how to pronounce his last name. Starts with a J.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Hey, I'll take that. Scotty J. Just do that. J. So look, you said some things that are really important that I think anybody in the startup space needs to understand this, and even investors. First and foremost, there are rules and laws out there to protect from people giving money that they are not, not being a credit investor, that they couldn't invest in something like ours. That's why they have those, the crowdfunding, to where the rules don't quite apply to that. But when investor typically strokes out a check, they should operate in the sense that they're not going to get it back. But they're hoping that they will. They're hoping they'll get a 10x, and they really got to believe and buy into the person who's asking for the money. Now, what blows my mind, and still to this day, it's absolutely, crazy or bonkers, is that no one really does a background check. No one does a credit check on who they're investing in. And you hear all the time, like you can watch Shark Tank and you'll hear like Damon, I know he said it like a million times where he's like, the power of being broke, you know? And I'm like, I agree. Like when you're at bottom and you're broke, like you have nowhere else to go but up. Recently, I got a tattoo that it says sink the ship. And that my mantra has always been, if you want to take the island, you got to first sink the ship. And meaning that you can't necessarily have something to fall back on. But these angel investors or even, VCs, like they're not doing this diligence of background check. And I remember finally we got an investment from VIPC or VIPC as some of us call them. But VIPC, they invested in us and they're like, hey, we have to do a background check. And I remember like talking to them like, thank goodness. Thank you for doing that.
I do think times are changing though. Times are changing. Like before, when the market was crazy, man, it was like people had to act really, really fast to close, to get on that term sheet and to close that deal. And then look where that got us. Everybody was just reckless abandon. And now, the due diligence, thankfully, is starting to happen again.
Yeah, well, and it really has to, because unfortunately, and to a lot of startups out there and founders, they don't even know what it's like to get $100,000 check. They don't know how to manage $100,000, $50,000, $1 million. They don't. And I'm not trying to. Anybody who knows me knows that I am a startup and I'm a founder lover. Like I want to see them succeed and I want to see them grow. But they've got to surround themselves with people that understand how to manage those kind of funds. Like one of the things that I did very early on with the company is because of my previous success and because my wife and I, we have, beautiful home, we have, a couple of toys and we tend to, buy things and every now and then it gets out on social media. Like if I have a boat or a camper or something like that. And what I had to say very early on to my investors is I said, hey, look, I don't handle the money. Like I'll talk to you about investing and I appreciate your investment, but once you invest, that money actually goes through a channel where I have a fractional CFO, I have an accountant, I have I have teams and management teams that are actually managing those funds because I want to make sure I always stay above reproach when it comes to this money that's being invested. And not to mention, my wife and I, we have great credit. We're very mindful of our finances. We're not going to overextend ourselves. And then on top of that, we background is clean as well. But it's mind blowing that that's just like an afterthought. And I don't understand that. And any startup or founder, because you guys get a lot of them who listen to this, please know I'm not saying you shouldn't be invested in. I do think that you should be invested in if you have a great product and service and you can show scale. But what you need to do is make sure you surround yourself with the right people that know how to manage those funds.
Yeah. Knowing your numbers, know what your burn rate's going to be. It's not like all of a sudden you collect a check for $100,000 and then be like, hey, guess what, guys? We're on a $50,000 a month burn rate, and then we'll figure it out in 2 months when we're out of cash again. I mean, it's just it takes so much discipline.
Yeah, it does. And Magazine Jukebox has raised $1.3 million to date, and we have about 700,000 left on our bridge seed round. And our hopes is to go into Q1, Q2 next year to go into our first A round. Which will be raising, probably somewhere around $5 million to $10 million. And the reason for that is because we're going to be going into the data space, and that's hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. And we have a great tool we're in like a little over 4,000 locations now. And, to be at that, we have all this opportunity for data that we could be, sourcing. And so, but it costs a lot of money to do that. A lot of attorneys.
You built the product from an external team at some point, a team in Richmond, I believe. I can't think of their names.
Simple Thread. Yep.
Simple Thread. Yeah. Are they still associated with it? Have you gone internal? Yeah. How is that working? How do you grow with an outsourced team? Because a lot of times, and maybe it's just the fact that a lot of these engineering teams are from overseas and not in the States. So maybe that's why you've seen success with that. But a lot of outsourced engineering teams for a technical product have a lot of challenges with not only communication, but getting the product built. When there's a bug, how you get it fixed, because they're not internal, they're external. How does that, as you've grown, continue to work? And you think about going internal? Where are you on that?
Yeah, so no, no, we have no plans and no desire to go internal. I think it's just too much. I think it's I think it's a lot easier for us to continue to outsource. We use Simple Thread. We still do. We foresee always using them. They're also investors in the company, and so there's no reason for us to go anywhere else. They're very honest. They're open. They communicate. Their communication is great. Slack is a great tool. Emails, phone calls, whatever it takes. They are in Richmond. They are close by. We're not dealing with different time zones. We're certainly not dealing with language barriers. So for all those reasons, it's very successful. But I do understand, I'm paying $130 an hour, $140 an hour. Maybe I'm paying $60 an hour, whatever it is that we're paying for that dev team. It's very tempting to go overseas. You can get it down to $20 an hour, $15 an hour. I mean, heck, I know some founders that were paying like $6 or $7 an hour for a dev team. But the horror stories that I've heard from that has been, and it's nothing, not that they don't, not that people overseas don't try their hardest, because they do. Like, they're typically a single member breadwinner for their family. They're going to try really hard to keep you happy and keep that job, because last I heard, what is it? And a lot of people outsource to India, but India has 1 billion, citizens, or, something like that. And how do you keep them all working? How do you keep them fed? They have to work overseas. Like that, they don't have enough internal work for them. So while I can sympathize and empathize with what these, startups using them, we just chose the different route. We went with Simple Thread. They've been huge partners of ours. In fact, their CEO, Justin Etheridge, is our fractional CTO. So it works out really, really well.
Interesting. What's more exciting, being a founder of a startup or traveling 75, 150 miles an hour on a motorcycle?
It's funny. I actually have a blog out there about this. I wrote it on my LinkedIn page, and I said how motorcycle riders are geared up to be founders and for startups, because so many of the things that a motorcycle rider does translates really well to a founder. For example, when you're riding on your motorcycle, you're not looking at the car necessarily in front of you. You're looking past the car in front of you. You're looking for what's your exit plan constantly. Like, how are you going to get out of the way if something disastrous happens? And you got to do it pretty quick. You got to be able to pivot really quick. And so I talked about that in my blog, about all the pieces that kind of come together with those, because for those who don't know me, I have been riding. I rode since I was about 5 years old. I've had a dirt bike. I've destroyed my brother's dirt bikes many times. He's always appreciated and loved me for that. In fact, I always remember one story. Like, I went off this jump and I totally eat it. And I'm like gasping for air. Wind knocked out of me. I thought I was dying. And I remember briefly watching my brother run right past me to go to his motorcycle and make sure it was all right. And he didn't care that I was dying. So if he listens to this, he'll know exactly what that moment was. But which one's more enjoyable? Man, I don't have a motorcycle tattooed on my body. I have Sink the Ship tattooed on my body. So, it's like, I love entrepreneurship. I'm a business owner. I love being in business. I love watching things grow and manifest. And it's just something I'm really passionate about. The ongoing joke with my wife and I is that I have no hobbies because work is my hobby. It's what I love to do.
Looks like you are down a couple pounds.
Oh, really? True? Really? You want to bring that up, huh? Okay. Zack attack. So I'm down about 61 pounds, 62
about 61.
Maybe.
Yes, 62. Yeah.
Well, I knew I was going to be doing a lot more of these shows and blogs and like traveling and meeting people. And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the big guy in the room. Although, funny story, guys, you'll love this. So my daughter, she's 4 years old. She's incredible. Anybody who's watching the show, I'm going to try to find a picture of her to pull up real quick. But
didn't your son get beamed with the ball last time?
Yeah.
So this is my daughter. She's 4. Yeah. She'll be 5 here soon. She took over my phone, and what do you do when they take all these selfies? You make it into a collage. But she last night, so the rule is like I go and my oldest son, he's about to be 7, and I go and him and I will pray together, and then I'll put him down for bed, and he's on his own. He's good. He's like, night, daddy, love you. That's it. So then, but my daughter's not quite there yet. So I have to go. I go to her room, and I usually lay down with her until she falls asleep. And so she's sitting there. We're laying down, and she goes, she's like, Dad, Daddy, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, I'm ignoring her because she'll just talk all night if she can. It's her way of staying up. And then she finally gets quiet, and then she goes, "Hey, big guy." And I'm like, what? What was that? She goes, and she taps me on the belly, and she goes, "You're a big guy." And I was like, "Thanks a lot, honey." So anyway, so yeah, but no, I'm down, and I do it for my wife, do it for my kids, I do it for myself. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be healthy. I lost my father when he was 58. I was 28 years old. I just turned 40 last week, and it's like my thing is if I have the same fate as my father, what would I do differently? And so it's like that's kind of how I try to operate. So I took took some steps to make this happen, and here we are.
So tell us about that in a minute. But you hinted at this, and this is what I ultimately wanted to ask you before you rudely interrupted me to tell us that it was 60, 61, 62, probably 63 pounds. But no, kudos, it's good. Tell us about how you did it earlier. But I mean this honestly. Do you think that by losing weight and being a more lean individual, that has helped you in business, has helped you gain more business?
Absolutely. And the rationale behind that is confidence. You gain more confidence. Yeah,
that's
you gain more confidence.
Okay, interesting.
No, I mean, like there's the superficial, like how people will perceive you and how people will look at you, for sure. I get that. But the confidence that you have in just feeling healthier and feeling better. I'm trying to find a picture I can show everybody in the world. Here we go. So this will give you an idea. That was me 6 months ago or so. And that was me over at the Newsmax studio in New York City. So yeah, so the it's you feel more confident. You also feel accomplished, like you can do something, like you can go through hell and back, so to speak, because it's not an easy task. It's not for all those who are overweight. Like I get it, been there for many, many years. And it's not an easy ride, that's for sure. And there are things that you don't realize when you're overweight, like just the simple fact of being able to regulate your temperature is really, really wild. Like when you're bigger, you sweat when it's 60 degrees out. When it's 100 degrees out, good Lord, just get me to an ice bucket and put ice down my back. And then when you sweat too, you feel embarrassed about it. Or at least I did. And so it's like, and now when I sweat, I'm like, yeah, I'm sweating because I just went for a run, or I'm sweating because it's 100 degrees out. But when it's 60, I feel it's 60. I'm cold. When it's 70, I'm kind of chilly. When it's 80, I'm feeling pretty good. It's like, but before that wasn't the case. So yeah, so confidence, I think people look at you a little bit differently, and unfortunately that's the truth. And here's the thing is obesity really is a disease. And I think so many people don't realize that. Like you can have fat deposits in places that your body would never know to burn. And so you have to go through some radical changes in order to make those, to be able to isolate and get that, fat burned. And so, anyways, yeah, it was quite a bit of a journey. Still is. It'll always be. Yeah, trust me. I want to eat a bag of chips every night. So,
yeah, amen to that, man. It's the temptation and the struggle is always there. I mean, it's just, and it's crazy. Not long ago, I mean,
baked lays,
man. But like,
but also like with kids, like, like things you don't think about, like you order your plate, your wife orders her plate, and your kids order a plate that they don't even eat. And then you don't want it to waste. And then it's I'm going to eat my plate. I'm going to eat their plate. And it's just it's vicious.
Watching food go to waste, man. That is something that I struggle with. I mean, because growing up, you didn't leave the table until your plate was empty.
I think that's bad advice that our parents gave us. They would always say, finish your plate. Like what we should have been saying is eat till you're full.
All right. Right.
or eat till you're content. You don't even have to eat till you're full. Just eat till you're content. When our kids say, "Hey, I don't want any more," fine. They don't. That's fine. You tried. You took a couple bites. Hey, we're good with that. We know as parents, you're going to be hungry later. We know that, so we're gonna save that food and put it in the fridge, and we'll give it to them later.
Take all you want, but eat all you take.
Exactly.
What a line.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just like, I think a lot of people are going through that now. I mean, you look at Jeff Bezos, man, he's that dude's pretty ripped now, man. It's
but that's steroids. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, I mean, people with money, I mean, they got nothing but time. I mean, it's just like
you got professional chefs. You got professional chefs. You got trainers. You've got I mean, as they should. Like, man, you got billions of dollars. Why not?
Well, I don't know that he's on steroids. I've never seen a picture of him.
Well, let's go Google.
Yeah,
I don't typically Google Jeff Bezos.
Well, that's just been something. It's been trending on Twitter
But when you have that kind of money, I can't remember which one of you just said this, but you have a chef, you can get, have people catering to your every, muscle group.
Yep.
The things that, LeBron James, over $1 million a year on his body, he spends on between massage, food, workout coaches, things like that. I mean, if you want to do it, you can do it. I mean, that's super catered in, right? I mean, there are some easy ways to just be healthier. Counting calories and walking are probably the easiest things. One thing that I like, I don't know if you do this, Scott, but something that I thought was really interesting is a lot of people are like, I don't have 30 minutes or an hour to go on a walk or to exercise. And so I was watching this video. I can't remember who it was. Mind Body Pump, something like that. Mind Pump, something like that. And he goes, okay, after every meal, just go walk 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back. Do that 3 times, and that's 30-minute walk in a day. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And what's even more interesting about that aspect is when you do that, like, you're starting to move that food too throughout your body. So then you don't feel as whatever that is when you eat a meal. And then you get, 30 minutes of exercise divided by 3 walks. So
what's interesting too is when you lose the weight, like, I love walking now. I love going places, just walk places. I mean, I love running too. I mean, that's more my thing. But it's like I park. So here in Norfolk, where we're based out of, is that we have. I'm over off City Hall, and I park over on Freemason. And I mean, there's 2 reasons behind that. One, I enjoy the walk, or I'll ride my bike. But the other thing is that it has a charger that actually works for my Jeep Wrangler. So I could play, because I have a plug and play Jeep Wrangler. So
what does that mean? You have an electric Jeep now?
Yeah, the 4xe. And so
where do you plug that in Freemason?
So on the second floor up, they have 3 Tesla chargers and 2 like standard chargers, and one works in the standard. Yep.
Just the price of parking. Yeah.
But I mean, you got to pay for parking. So that's the
it's
problem.
Nothing additional.
That's the problem with Norfolk, right? Is that you pay $100 a month for parking. So that's one of the things that really Norfolk's got to get under grips is their parking situation, because
I know you hate it.
I do. And startups, the problem is, like, for startups, you're trying not to burn money, right? And so if you have 10 employees, and $85 each, that's $850 a month that you're just throwing away for them to park, 40 hours a week. That sucks. Like, there should be some kind of grant that's like, hey, look, we'll pay for your parking for 2 years if you're a startup, or you have traction or something. Yeah.
So like 12 years ago, I don't know if Tim, you and I were associated in these conversations.
Are you still associated? I mean, let's be real. I'm just kidding.
In parking conversations. Anyway, I think Clinton Dalton went and pitched. Do you know who Clint Dalton is? He created 757 Creative Space.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know that name. Yeah.
And a couple other things. But he was like, yo, parking in Norfolk is atrocious. It's stupid. You guys talk about how you want all these people down here, and more people would show up if you made parking easier. I think parking's easy, so I think that's a cop-out. But then 2, free or adjusted pricing. And so they did this thing where it was called Park Up, where you would get a severely reduced parking monthly voucher, $30 maybe, but it was at the roof of everything. Well, some of the roofs would take 12 minutes to get to, like the SunTrust roof in Norfolk, literally
Insane.
takes 12 minutes. Because I remember Corey and
Yep.
Brendan Tompkins would take that one from
It's the Truist building now, not SunTrust, but
Whatever.
it's Truist
Right,
building.
right.
too.
yeah. But like they would go up there, and it's just like,
Yep.
I mean, it is interesting how, cities talk about how they want these things to happen. At the end of the day, the reason is because whenever they build a garage, each parking space costs them $20,000 over the span to pay off. So if you have 500 parking spaces, whatever 500 times $20,000, that's their issue, is that they get into these situations. And look, my numbers could be a little off, right? But they get in these situations where they over commit to something so ridiculously overpriced, and it's just like, no wonder.
Yeah.
And then they never get anyone there, and they're like, oh, where is everyone? It's like, well, make it a little easier, maybe people will show up. But I actually believe that if parking was free in Norfolk, nothing would change. That's my honest opinion, but I think people use that as a crutch and an excuse.
I don't think it should be free. I mean, you're in a tight space where you need to, make use of every square foot that they have. Like, I get that. And so I'm all on board with that. The rooftop parking is $40 a month. So what we
They
did,
still have it.
Yep. So, but there's only 3 garages that participate. Why MacArthur Mall doesn't participate in any parking incentive beyond?
It's because they're not owned by the city. That's why. It's not the city garage.
I know, but they're still foreclosed on. So it's like, dang, why don't you just try to grab up every parking
Did
spot
you know that they changed last year or 2 years ago? You could get 20 minutes free there. So if like you ran in and ran out,
Oh no, I didn't know that.
you could get out
Good, I'm
for
going to
free.
start telling my team. I'm going to start telling my team,
But not anymore. They changed it where
Oh,
they're
did they?
like, yeah, because I remember I used to go run in, run out, do something real quick, and they're like, oh, it's $1. I'm like, what? It's free. And they're like, no, they changed it. The owners realized that they were losing however many dollars a year towards that, which probably was significant.
I'm sure parking now generates more revenue than the mall itself. It's unfortunate.
Without a doubt, super unfortunate. But I think the Nick and them, they're all trying to figure out how they're going to change it up. Which is
it's
exciting.
not unfortunate. It's the life cycle of malls. Like the fact that mall is still
Absolutely.
relevant.
Yeah,
or anything. When people complain about that, I'm like, hello, like,
Well, it's
look
just,
at mall in general.
I just look at it in the sense of like 20 years ago when we first arrived to Virginia, man. I mean, like that was the place to be. And then just see it, just see the decline over the.
I mean, that's pretty quick. Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, if you think about it, this mall in particular, 20 minutes or 20 years.
They built that mall late.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that.
Malls were starting to die at that time.
Yeah. The thing about MacArthur Mall, they're going to repurpose it. Somebody will figure something out, and that's what a lot of people are doing. I think the movie theater needs to branch out on their own and have their own, segmentation of because you'll get your crowd coming here for the movie theater still. I mean, that's still always going to draw attention, but some of these big guys, they got to get out of there and just move on and let them repurpose it.
Scott, speaking of which, have you gone to Brothers yet, or have you heard anything about Brothers?
Don't have a clue. Haven't heard about it.
That's for the Tony Brothers, the NBA referee who opened up the restaurant where Texas de Brazil used to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
Tim,
what's that?
Have you been there?
I have not, but I walking back because we always park at MacArthur just because it's always a little bit cheaper. Walking back, I saw that it was open and they had all the branding and stuff up. That I forgot that's where he located his restaurant. But I was just curious if there was any word on the street about how it is.
Well, their monthly, whatever it was, a Kincaid's before it was Texas de Brazil, they had to pay $70,000 a month in rent. That was their old rent. So I don't know what that is now, but that's so expensive.
I remember my early days. I was with Radio Shack, and I remember I had to come help and open up the Radio Shack here in MacArthur Mall. And because I was in the MIT program, we were entitled to see what the rents are, and we were able to, because they had fair. I mean, even then, so they had these what they're called pyramid rents. So that way, during peak season, like Christmas time, it's higher, and then there's a lull time, and they have to be able to show that. And so, but the average across the board was like $18,000 a month. I mean, we're going 20 years ago, $18,000 a month. I mean, it's like that's
and
insane.
Those are what 1,000 square foot little boxes. I mean, I remember I remember it was their accountant who told me that number at Kincaid's. I was like, he told me it was like $65,000-$70,000, and I almost like barfed. I was like,
I think now rent is. I think that some of the places rent is free, and it's just a revenue share at this point.
Wow, I believe that. Well, they actually approached us to put magazines in there, and I said no. I said no, not going to happen. I said I just can't have my brand in there.
Speaking of brand, Scott, you're really, really good at. I mean, you are constantly out there promoting Magazine Jukebox, sharing everything. I mean, you are just, and I say this in the greatest way, most complimentary way, just relentless when it comes to that. Is that something that you've always been part of you, or is that something that you had to learn to do? What's your take on that?
Yeah. I don't know the not that there's a right or wrong answer. I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is that when you believe in something, you want to share it with the world. So that's what we're trying to do. And you start in your circle and expand. I mean, that was like recently, I was just looking at it on like LinkedIn. And for those who are startups, if you're not spending time on LinkedIn, then you're missing out. Even if you're a B2C company, still, B2B is still, consumers. And so they may not be a consumer from a commercial perspective, but they could be a customer, personally. But I really live in the LinkedIn space. My team lives everywhere else. And so I really enjoy like putting out my company. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm anxious for it to grow and expand. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't really hard to do when you believe in it.
Yeah. I wish that more people would follow your play. I mean, it just, there's just an opportunity missed. I mean, you send something over my way, and I'm always happy to share everything that you send my way, and happy to share anything that any startup sends my way. But a lot of people just, they either don't share it, and then they don't necessarily reciprocate either. Not that I mean, reciprocation is always nice, but it's not the motive. But and then to your point on LinkedIn, and I think in terms of like organic impressions, I think that LinkedIn is probably, it's pretty generous, I think, in terms of not throttling back based on any algorithms or whatnot.
Well, when you get to a certain amount, a lot of people don't know this, but when you get to a certain amount of user or followers and you post enough, actually LinkedIn makes you they kind of categorize you as I can't think of the name,
like an influencer type of thing.
Yeah, like an influencer, exactly. And so you actually, the more you do and the more you use it, the more you post, the more they're going to actually share your content. And that has worked very, very well for us. In fact, they just opened up for us so we can start doing newsletters now on LinkedIn from the company. And so we're starting to learn about that and how that could be. Like, how do you do a newsletter on LinkedIn and then also do a newsletter out for your existing, partners?
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want to necessarily dive all into this, but, with Chat GPT-4 and AI and all this stuff, it's like, it's so hard to get organic, human-based content. Let me rephrase that. Right now, it's easy. I think it's going to be harder to get in the future. And I think we're going to see more strides of people saying like, hey, this was AI built, or this ad was brought to you through human interaction only, or something like that, something silly. Because, with these newsletters that we're doing, it's like, how do you keep up with them? How do you, manage all that content? So, but we have a team. I believe in humans. I believe in the team. And so I'll continue to invest.
As long as they take that content to make more magazine articles and publish more magazines, then you'll be in great shape.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, just to piggy on that for a second is that, publishers are having a really hard time with monetizing magazines. They always have, like, especially on the digital side. And if you noted, like, if you watched Elon recently, he put out a post about he's going to allow for monetization for publishers. They could come on board for a year, and
for
you
free.
Can pay.
Yeah.
You can, and you can. Consumers can pay to read what they want, and so I think there's going to be a huge shift here soon in the publisher world, and I think that they're going to start getting their content back. It's not going to be all because there's really three segmented consumers out there when it comes to, getting content. And there's your first one is someone who is willing to pay for it. So that's your direct consumer. They're like, hey, I'm not going to give you any information. I'm not going to give you any of my time, but I'm going to just go ahead and pay for it. So we don't have to do that. Then you have the person who's going to be willing to give up their time. So they'll take a survey or they'll watch a commercial. They're willing to pay for it that way. And then the third one is the person who's willing to give information. Like, hey, you want access to what I spend money on? Fine, go ahead. Here's my, download this app, follow me, share all, what I'm doing. Fine. They're willing. So you really have this bandwidth of what people are willing to allow. And so I think there's going to be a huge shift here in the future when it comes to content and how that's, being put out there.
Yeah, 100%. Elon's making a big play.
I think people are afraid to promote themselves, Tim, and that's why they don't do it. And so,
well, I think that Scott nailed it in the sense of belief in self is really, really important.
No, but I think people are afraid that if they promote themselves too much or they ask too much, that they are going to look like it's just a frowned upon thing. And I think that people think that being quiet and never promoting oneself is a completely fine way. And it is. I'm not in that belief. I am like firm believer in like go to the mountaintops and scream at the top of your lungs what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I think you have to do that because who the hell else is going to, if not, right? But there are a lot of people, and I think probably the overwhelming majority of people are not willing to do that. And I think that's why you just see it like that. And so it's interesting. Why has it been hard for magazines to make money?
Because so much free content out there. I mean, it's just, and it's hard. Like when you think of a book, right? Like when you buy a book, you know what you're getting. There's this great book out there called Anomaly. I don't know if you've heard of it, but when you go and you buy the book, you can read the front or the back and you know what that book's going to be about. But going and spending, and maybe that book's $20, right? But going and spending $10 on a magazine, and you don't know what the content inside is going to be because there's no reference. I mean, you have like bullet points, but there's not like any true reference of what's going on in the magazine. Then, so it just makes it hard to monetize it. People believe like we live in a society now in a generation, the current generation and younger generation, they are accustomed to free. They're accustomed to getting things for free. And so getting them to pay for something is going to be very difficult moving into the future. So they're going to have to pay. And so I posted on this just recently where I said, if something is cheap or something is free, you are most likely the product. So always remember
100%.
that, so you got to be mindful of what nothing's free, nothing's cheap. Publishers pay money to writers, to photographers, to the print itself, to digitizing it. They're paying tons and tons of money for this content. And so if they can't get it through subscriptions, they're going to get it somehow.
Yeah, I think Zuckerberg taught us that lesson more than anyone.
By free, you mean like they're the data point that,
yep.
And they're selling the data off.
They're the product. People are buying their information.
Yep.
Until the younger generation gets that and understands it, then it's going to be tough. So the publishers are they're going to constantly struggle in that realm for a little bit. That's what makes Magazine Jukebox so great is that we're kind of a marketing play for publishers. You get it temporarily. You're not getting full, you get full access to the magazine. There's no ads that are going to pop up in the magazine. So you do get full from cover to cover. You get to enjoy the magazine. You get to enjoy it while you're there. But when you leave and you exit, you only get it for 36 more hours as long as you don't clear your browser, and you get it for 36 hours. And then, then it times out. So that's what makes us so relevant for publishers is that they want to get their content out. And I'm using a random statistic because I have no idea the true answer to this. And I don't think anybody does. But it's like, I feel like it's like 80% of consumers out there that read magazines have never read a digital magazine cover to cover. They've read snippets, little pieces, but they've never read one cover to cover. They have no idea what that experience is like.
80 seems low.
Probably. Cover
to cover that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. So you're probably right. It's probably higher, but I'll err on side of caution here. But it's like, you're not going to have we just don't have people that read it. So you give them, if you catch them in a place like a waiting room or a place of transit, and they really have nothing, almost like nothing better to do but to stare at the channel that is pre-programmed, on the wall, or they're going to stare at their phone on social media that is, it gets old after a while. They want to read something good on Car and Drive, or maybe they want to read something on highlights for their kids, or maybe they want to read something in People magazine. And we're getting ready to onboard a ton of publications here soon. And so when that, when they want to read something like that, it's like, why not catch them when they're waiting?
Does the public library system offer something like Magazine Jukebox? Or what do they do?
So I think that they have a partnership. There is a digital magazine company out there, but they're really specific to libraries, and so that it's more of a I think they're subsidized a little bit, so I don't think that it's a I don't think that they raise capital. I don't think that they really have a burn or that they're profitable. I think that they just it's a subsidy.
So something like a Hoopla. Are you familiar with Hoopla? And because I'm thinking Norfolk Public Libraries do have something, and audiobooks, ebooks. Do they have magazines? I don't know.
I don't know either.
There are. I know that there's a digital magazine page turner out there for libraries only. I know that it's out there. I don't remember the name. They're just not on our radar. A lot of people are not. A lot of people are not on our radar anymore. We're leading the pack, so it's nice. They
oh, no kidding.
We have to quote one of the VPs over at Hearst is when I was up there about a month ago, he said Magazine Jukebox is years ahead of competition. So keep going. So it's cool to hear that.
What keeps you hungry? What makes you keep driving forward to stay ahead of competition?
Being ubiquitous, to be the best and hire more people, give people great careers. Honestly, for my wife and I to, I've never felt more like an entrepreneur than I do now. I think I said that on one of your previous shows that I was on with you guys. Like, I still feel that way. Like I wake up every morning. I love what I do. I love who I work with. And I love the publishers, our investors, or my team, and I love the thrill of when you go somewhere and someone you catch someone by accident using your product or service and enjoying it, or you go into a coffee shop and you say, "Oh, cool, we're here." Like those are cool feelings, and it's exciting. I mean, man, we're in over 200 plus hospitals now. I mean, it's just insane. Like we're changing a lot of lives too, like in the sense of, reading is a de-stressor. I mean, assuming you're not reading political stuff, but it's like it's a de-stressor. And so it's like, when people are in the hospital, whether you're there yourself or you're waiting on someone there, to be able to have something to read and enjoy to help reduce stress is awesome. Car dealerships, you go in and get your oil changed. I mean, there's only so much you can watch on that screen that they're,
Price is Right.
Which by the way, most of them are actually, it's a company that comes in, they put their TV in there and they do all their ads on there, and they are actually paying rev share to the, to the dealership or to these airports is a classic example. I mean, it used to be owned by CNN. Now it's owned by NBC, and they own all the screens, and it was,
I love the product, but in addition, I love the fact that you're not wasting paper, you're not filling landfills. It's just from the green aspect. I think it's super cool what you're able to do as well.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we took did like an internal survey of what it would, one location that has, let's say they have 4 publications, we give them 12. Stay tuned. We may be giving them more here soon. Maybe you're learning something on the show nobody knows about. But they, you take 4 physical magazines and you put it on a scale, and it's going to be a couple of pounds. And then you take that times it by 12 months. And then you look at that and you're like, okay, if that's 100 pounds, then, and you're in 100 locations, man, we just removed 1,000 pounds of waste. So, man, to me, that's a huge win.
On the last show, you said something along the lines of, I believe it's harder to raise money once you have a product than before, if you were still kind of in idea stage, if you will. It's been 50 or so episodes since you said that, which would be 1 calendar year. Do you still believe that? Have you changed on that?
100%. No, 100%. It's still, I mean, it's like, if you go watch Shark Tank, like everybody thinks our world is like Shark Tank. They just think that, we're pitching to billionaires and hundreds of millions of dollars and that we're just going to get a deal. And it's like, the truth is, it's like, if you ever watch it, there's like, I was just watching, I think it was last Friday's episode, I don't know, where they're like, wow, you're doing great. You're making money. You've scaled from zero to making $750,000 a year. And it's just you. And you're, profitable by $200,000. For that reason, I'm out. It's like, wait a second. You did everything right. You got this great product and you're out. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so, it's definitely harder when you have a product than it is the idea of the product.
I mean, there's nothing easy. There's nothing ezy about being a founder.
And it shouldn't be. But it shouldn't be easy, right? Like, if it was easy, A, everyone would do it. And B, why should it be easy? Like, I'm trying to go after a unicorn. I want to be $1 billion company. Yeah. This should not be an easy feat.
How many people ask for a certain dollar amount, and then the follow-up question is, what's your use of funds? And they have no idea. Like, they're just like, I don't know. I mean, that's that.
What do you mean? Reword that. What do you mean?
People will say, "Oh, I want to raise $10 million," and then the person that you're talking to will say, "What is your use of that 10? How are you going to use that $10 million?" And they have no idea. They just pick that number out of their ass, and they're just like, "Oh, exactly. Hey, this is what I want to do," and it's just like. But going back to your earlier comment about being very frugal with your money, I think that's an ideal situation. You've raised 1.3 and 750 of it still in the bank. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Like, sounds like you're using that well.
Yeah. So we're always, so if you talk to my C-suite, man, they'll tell you a funny story. Last week they were in town. They flew in because 2 of my guys one lives in Dallas. The other one lives in Atlanta. And they flew in. I got them a rental car, and but it was when we had tornado hit, which is crazy because they landed the same minute that tornado warning came out for Virginia Beach. And I'm like, man, that pilot just wanted to be home. Like, he wasn't going to have it. But they so they landed. They get in. They get to the rental car, and it's a car, and it's like, man, been storming, flooding in areas. And I sent them a text, and I'm like, hey, you may want to get an SUV. So then they text me back a few minutes later. They're like, hey, it's $20 more a day. And I respond back, just get the car. And I'm like, that's how frugal I am. Like, I'm horrible about it, like it's like, and so they gave me a hard time all week about it. They're like, just get the car. Like, don't worry about my C-suite. Don't worry about it. So they showed the text to the enterprise guy, and the guy goes, I'm just going to give you the SUV at no additional cost. And I was like, look, my plan worked perfectly. You're welcome.
What's next, man? What are you looking forward to in the future? How can we help you?
Yeah, so I mean, just getting the word out. I mean, commercial partners. We want to grow, like hospitals, car dealerships, doctors' offices, coffee shops. Man, we just want to grow, get the word out, tell people, we're not expensive. I think our price is somewhere between $250 to $500. Or maybe it's $300 to $500 a year to have us in each location. So it's not an expense. We're way less than having magazines, which is a contention with our publishers because they want to make sure we're not devaluing their magazines. So I get that. But yeah, so it's like getting the word out is great. What's next for us is we have some big contracts that have been ratified. So now we're just onboarding them and going through the motions of getting them squared away, and we going live is always an exciting time for our company. Anytime a publisher or a commercial partner comes on board, when we get the email from our experience team says, hey, so and so has gone live, man, we're excited because that means it's up and running. They put it out there, and like we're in other countries too. So like we're in the Philippines, we're in Manila, and we have Medical City, and man, they just turn and burn on reading. Like, I mean, we're getting thousands and thousands of impressions every single day from that one hospital alone. And it's because they knew the value of it. They put it out properly. We worked with them, and when everything aligns, it just makes things work perfect. So yep, just getting the word out for us is great. And I'm also still trying to finish raising $700,000. So any investors who are watching this, just come on. We're on a convertible note. We have 8% with a 20% discount on a $6 million cap. So
I love it.
Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, man. No, I think that was very written out, I think.
Yeah. So what is it? It's May time frame. We'll get you next May, see how things go.
Yeah, maybe we do something for Christmas because we got a lot of exciting things happening. You may want me back soon.
All right. We can do that.
Can
you wear like a Kangol hat with some light up Christmas lights? Maybe
I'll do it. I mean, my office, my view is where they put the big Christmas tree out for Norfolk.
Yes, good.
So I will. I'll have that as my backdrop.
Christmas spirit, love it. We'll see you in December.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks, Zach, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you, man.